Hey, how's it going, everybody, and welcome back into the SFS channel. My name's Gavin, and today we're talking 5 league-winning running backs that I love the rest of the way this season. In particular, I love the fantasy playoff matchups between weeks 15 and 17. I think the usage, the talent, the upside, it's all very intriguing, all very exciting for what they could potentially mean to our teams down the stretch of this year and the difference makers that they could be for our rosters this season. So before we jump into today's episode, if you're new around here, make sure to drop down, give today's episode a like, and click that subscribe button. If you're new around here, we're trying to keep growing this SFS community and help out as many of you as possible this NFL season, corral those fantasy championships, and cap off this year with some big wins. If you guys got questions for me, drop those down in the comment section below, and myself or Eric will get back to as many of you as possible as we get through this week. So thank you guys so much for tuning in. Let's hit the intro and get straight in to our first league-winning running back for the rest of this season. Alrighty, my first running back I want to talk about today, and arguably one that I am most excited about on the list for today's episode, is David Montgomery of the Chicago Bears. I absolutely love this situation in Chicago. You give me a workhorse running back coming off of multiple weeks of absence into a modest performance against Pittsburgh in his opening game back with the team, now coming off of a bye. So for those of you who are gearing down, looking to make some final moves to perfectly cap off that roster as we head into the lengthy stretch of this NFL season and we get cracking down into postseason fantasy football, this is definitely at the top of the list for moves I would want to be making the rest of the way this year. Again, workhorse numbers involved in the rushing and passing game, goal line carries, and the Chicago offense really knows how to create productive NFL running backs. And again, in both the rushing and receiving departments, David Montgomery's got all of the tools that you could be looking for to have a productive fantasy back, whether you're playing standard, half PPR, or full PPR. I love what Montgomery brings to the table, and the schedule is really what caps everything off here. He has one of the easiest rest of season schedules in terms of, or I shouldn't say rest of season, but one of the easiest playoff schedules with Minnesota, Seattle, who arguably might be the worst team against the run. Just to the eye test, they are constantly getting gashed by opposing running backs. And then the Giants in championship week here. 3 matchups the Bears can be very productive against here. And with David Montgomery's tool set, his assets, and what this team brings to the table and the emphasis they put on the run game in a week-in, week-out basis, I love David Montgomery's upside and potential value to fantasy lineups. I think he could be a fringe running back 1 over that stretch of time. We saw him do numbers similar to that in an even a more extreme case. He came on and finished last season full guns a-blazing and ended as the season's RB4 in 2020. Next up here, we've got DeAndre Swift of the Detroit Lions. As a player, I also love to go out and try to acquire, or if you've got him in-house right now, I'm going to hold DeAndre Swift on my team unless I can get a significantly better player. But for a guy who has put up the numbers he has so far this season, who has been as useful and the lineup utility he's provided across all scoring formats has been very, very impressive. I've seen a lot of comments and a lot of questions regarding what they should be trading DeAndre Swift away for, or situations where they would be giving DeAndre Swift in trades. And for all those scenarios, I have frequently recommended, unless, again, in those extreme situations where if you can get yourself a Najee Harris, a Jonathan Taylor somehow, we're talking elite level fantasy running backs in return for a DeAndre Swift. I'm often recommending that you hold and that you refrain from making those deals. But if you can go out and acquire yourself a DeAndre Swift, or if you had the misfortune of shipping him off, whoever you traded him to is getting a very, very useful fantasy back in return here. Dan Campbell was more involved with the offensive scheming, the game plan for the Lions this week against the Steelers. They, of course, in true Lions fashion, they remain winless. They are 0-8-1. With a tie. So they're not going to lose all their games this year. The Lions managed to escape another defeat, but they also did not manage to win the game. They tie the Steelers in overtime. Mason Rudolph couldn't get the job done. Pat Freiermuth ended up fumbling the game, or the potential game-winning drive field goal attempt from Chris Boswell away. It was a disaster. So the Lions are down bad right now, but You got to give it to him. They managed not to lose that game. Regardless, though, Dan Campbell's game plan was very effective. He was out here biting kneecaps off, running the football, playing smash mouth, physical offensive mentality and strategy here. 33 carries. 33 freaking carries for DeAndre Swift, 133 yards, and they gave him 6 more targets. He had 36 actual touches in this game. You've got yourself some astronomical volume here. No Jamal Williams in the lineup. That means they are plugging the ball away and getting the job done. DeAndre Swift over doubled his previous rushing high this season. Now, his passing numbers weren't all that spectacular here, but man, was he getting the job done again on the ground. DeAndre Swift, again, another player whose schedule is fantastic the rest of the way this season. And even in those games when the Lions fall behind quickly and fall behind rather extremely, I still like him because his pass catching upside and utility gives him a way to overcome bad game scripts. We've seen this before this season. Whether the Lions are down big or they're only down a touchdown or so, he's able to get the passing game involvement and ultimately turn those receptions into meaningful yards, explosive plays. And he'll find the end zone at an effective rate as well. So this is a player who isn't regarded on the trade market as an elite tier fantasy running back. You can potentially find yourself a way out here to go grab a player who has the Cardinals, who are probably his toughest matchup the rest of the way. Again, that pass catching usage makes me feel that he is able to overcome those bad game scripts. And then the Falcons, and the big one for me, championship week, give me the Seahawks run game or run stopping unit. One of the worst in the league. They also get gashed by running backs in the receiving department. A golden example here. Look back to what A.J. Dillon and Aaron Jones collectively did against the Seahawks in a 17-0 shutout against them this past week here in Week 10. You can get the job done very, very effectively. He could be a literal league winner on Championship Sunday if he's able to go out there and have games similar to other running backs this season against that Hawks defense. Love the passing involvement. Love the potential on the ground here. And if Dan Campbell keeps his rushing attempts this high the rest of the way this year, that number will be inflated from where we've seen it at the rest of this season, as he frequently struggled to crack even 60 yards. But again, we love DeAndre Swift because of his receiving involvement in what he is in the passing game. While we're on the topic of Dan Campbell, DeAndre Swift, and the Detroit Lions situation as a whole, if you want to avoid having your kneecaps bitten off this holiday season, you need to head over to Manscaped and get yourself hooked up with this absolute game changer right here. The Lawnmower 4.0 has everything you need to get all of your below-the-belt grooming done. You've got yourself this awesome ceramic blade that's going to help reduce the chances of nicks and cuts in those delicate nether regions. And you've also got yourself this really useful light. I'll turn it on for a second here. You'll hear that and see the light that comes up. That's going to help you be able to see what's going on and never have a potentially fatal miscut when you are grooming, again, the jungle downstairs. This thing is a lifesaver for me. Manscaped.com if you want to go get yourself hooked up with the Lawnmower 4.0 or any of their other great grooming products, especially for below your belt. Check it out, manscaped.com. Promo code SIZZLE, that's SIZZLE. That'll get you 20% off, again, any of their products and free shipping. That's a pretty good deal if you ask me. And Dan Campbell won't be coming for you this holiday season. Go tell your friends and family. Code SIZZLE's where to go. All right, one more time, Manscaped. Go check them out. Again, manscaped.com, promo code SIZZLE. Get you 20% off, free shipping. What could possibly be better than that? Antonio Gibson is our next potential league-winning running back here for the rest of the way this season. What a 180 here in terms of flipping the script of the perception he has amongst the fantasy community. A very big underrated asset to this offense that they were missing for early in the season is Brandon Strafe, their starting guard, who has had a star-like impact in terms of what he does for this team when on the field. I think it was Adam Schefter put out a tweet earlier on in the day prior to the Washington football team playing this game against Tampa Bay and having a very impressive upset here in his absence throughout his career. That is the guard Strafe for this Washington football team offense. The team is like 0-11 or 0-12, so they are very, very different offensively and very incapable of moving the football as effectively when he's not out there. And a big reason for that is the run game. The holes he's able to open up, the creases he creates for these running backs. Antonio Gibson, while he didn't have an overly productive or efficient day, still had his best fantasy game of the season against, in my opinion, the stingiest rushing defense in the league in Tampa Bay. 24 carries, 64 yards. 2 touchdowns is where he got his bread and butter done with here for this week. That's where 12 of those points of production came from. And only 2 receptions is still not fantastic, still is underwhelming in consideration for the level of usage I expected Gibson to have in that department this season. He actually doesn't have a game with over 3 catches or 3 receptions in a contest this year, which again is relatively disappointing. But I love the 3-game schedule during the fantasy playoffs. 24 rushes, 2 receptions, 26 total touches is very good volume nonetheless. And with Schrafe back in this lineup, the holes he's opening up for Gibson, with Philadelphia twice, Dallas once during that week 15 through 17 stretch, I'm confident that Gibson can get back into range of being a very quality fantasy producer. If he keeps finding the end zone, keeps punching the ball in for 6, we've got something here. And now this might not be a player that is going to go out here and explode for huge, outrageous outputs of points. I think that for those of us who stayed patient with Gibson while his value was bottomed out because he hadn't put up more than 6.5 fantasy points in, I believe it was a month of playing time here. For those of you who held on to him, for those of you who went out and bought low, the shin injury seems to be a thing of the past. He's been removed from the injury report. We're in the clear for that now, it seems. You've got your offensive line back intact. You've got yourself a healthy running back now. This should be a situation that moving forward, again, in those 3 advantageous matchups where you can get some work done. Again, Philly twice and the Dallas defense, 3 divisional games in weeks 15 through 17. Gibson has a lot of potential there. Next up here, we've got Javonte Williams, and what I'm going to say is or Melvin Gordon for this Denver Broncos backfield. 2 more running backs with fantastic schedules here and who are, at the moment, each very involved to a level where I feel that they can be very strong RB2 level producers in that week 15 through 17 stretch. And I will emphasize Javonte Williams here because as the rookie, the younger player, the high draft choice for the Broncos this year, I would say if there was a chance for either of the two to totally take over this offense and down the stretch plug away at huge fantasy outputs, it would be Javonte Williams' show to do that with. Now, Melvin Gordon, throughout this point in the season, has been equally, if not slightly more involved than Javonte Williams, seeing more goal line opportunities and whatnot, even seeing a little bit more receiving work at times as well. They both have the potential to, again, be strong level RB2 performers through that 3-week stretch to end off this fantasy season. But again, I will say I think Javonte Williams' ceiling goes a step higher. If you want to dig deeper into the information, Melvin Gordon lost a fumble this week. It was returned 80-plus yards by Darius Slay for a touchdown. Coaches hate that, but Melvin Gordon's been a chronic fumbler throughout his time in the National Football League. I'm a big Wisconsin Badger fan. It's been a career-long thing for Melvin Gordon. Javonte Williams here, though. You've got yourself, again, an easy schedule. Cincinnati, who started off this season as a hot rushing defense but has recently really fallen off. The Raiders, and then week 17, you get the Chargers, who have also really, really struggled to stop the run. Dalvin Cook ate them up this past week. The Vikings upset the Chargers, if you want to consider it an upset. These are 2 backs that I think, again, have very, very stable and strong outlooks for that 3-week period. And if you're looking for the upside play, there might be a little bit more risk attached to a Javonte Williams. But for what I stated, you've got the fumble issue with Melvin Gordon. He lost one this past week. Not that they're going to outright bench him for that one occurrence. That would be a bit of an extreme situation to predicate that around. But if something were to happen, obviously, to one of these players, that would set the other player up for very, very good success the rest of the way this season. Again, this is all speculatory and possible, not even speculation, really. It's the potential scenario or outcome because this is a bit more of a 50-50 split backfield right now that I feel both of these players can thrive in, but one would significantly prosper to a greater extent if they were to take this backfield over outright. I'm just trying to lay out some of the situations in which that might happen because, again, I think Javonte would be the player to see that situation arise from unless it was injury-related for Javonte. But nonetheless, we're starting to get into way more deeper information than I was looking to here. So the main point being Javonte Williams and Melvin Gordon are 2 players with very, very favorable schedules the rest of the way. Potentially very affordable buys on the trade market if you're looking to go out there and acquire a running back, if your team is very needy at that position. Before we get into the end of this season. 2 players I feel very, very strongly in the rest of the way. And then I'm going to amend the wording of the title of today's episode for this last player here, A.J. Dillon. Rather than league-winning running backs, I'm going to alter that to league-saving running backs for A.J. Dillon here, or season-saving running backs, that being A.J. Dillon. He's owned in under 60% of leagues. He's one of the top handcuff fantasy options due to his level of involvement while Aaron Jones is healthy and on the field. But if he is unowned in your league, go pick up A.J. Dillon as soon as possible. Go put in a waiver claim for him if you're watching this episode early on in the week. Prior to the waiver claims processing for Week 11 fantasy football, A.J. Dillon, again, is owned in just under 60% of ESPN fantasy leagues. This is a workhorse RB1 situation for the next 2 to 4 weeks while Aaron Jones is out with injury. For those of you who are Jones owners and don't own A.J. Dillon, this is going to be a tough blow to your fantasy rosters. And for those of you who already have Dillon on your teams or who potentially have an opportunity to go out and add him or trade for him, I wouldn't do it for a super high price. But A.J. Dillon, Aaron Jones is out with an MCL sprain. That timeline is typically 2 to 4 weeks. We don't have an official diagnosis. That's just what Packers trainers on the sideline expected during the game after he sustained the injury and went to the medical tent. We'll see how this thing plays out. I think an MCL sprain would be on the more fortunate side of things for Aaron Jones, as that could have been an ACL or something much more significant. So A.J. Dillon, the passing game involvement, the ability to be a sledgehammer on the goal line. They actually call him the snowplow in Lambeau right now. And then you've got yourself the overall 3-down running back mentality, or not mentality, but usage level, and no other competition for touches in this offense. With Aaron Jones out of the situation, their rookie 6th-round pick, Kylan Hill, who would be the next man up, is on the injured reserve. He actually tore his ACL a couple weeks back. Dillon's the only guy the Packers have to work with right now. Now, they're probably going to elevate somebody, bring in another free agent, veteran option, but A.J. Dillon is beloved in the Green Bay circle of coaches and players. He's going to get a ton of reps, very talented. He is a true workhorse and could be easily a top 12 producer for the next month as we approach the fantasy playoffs. So not even considering fantasy playoffs here, he does have a pretty modest schedule. It's not very hard. It's also not very easy. He can go out and produce in almost any contest the rest of the way while he is the starter. And with such limited competition for touches, this could save a lot of teams out there who are very desperate for top-end level fantasy running back production. Alrighty, those were our 5 running backs that have league-winning potential or league-saving, as we talked about there with A.J. Dillon to end this episode. But if you've got questions for your teams, drop those down in the comment section below. I can hopefully guide you in the right direction, whether it's roster moves, making trades, whatever the case might be. I'm here to help you guys out and try and make the best decisions possible for your rosters. So thank you so much for tuning in. And remember, if you're new around here, click that subscribe button and give today's episode a like to let us know you enjoyed the video and found it useful. With that being said, go check out some of our other videos we posted this week. Go check out Manscaped. Get yourself right this holiday season, or go help out somebody else in your family who could use some below-the-belt grooming products. Code Sizzle, 20% off and free shipping. With that being said, happy holidays, guys. We'll see you later. Peace out.